ultimately, right, they kind of feed this principle of necessity being the mother of invention. And, you know, we knew, okay, these Mangalitzes are available, they're perfect, and we need some money. So what do we do? Like, how are we going to make this work? And, you know, they have delivered. There's these six, we've done 6 pigs, and they've offered a living wage for us for a couple months. And we're hoping to do more later this summer.
And what is the price per pound for these shares?
$13.75 a pound.
Okay. And that is because that is what they are worth.
Yeah.
This isn't,
the farmer is getting paid a living wage.
This price was developed not because we scanned the market and said, well, what is Mangalitsa going for?
Right.
Because if we did that, we might find, only $7 a pound or $8 a pound. That's not going to work. So I have to do so many Mangalitsas to make that work. No, this was actually a reflection of what does the farmer need to make? What can we buy them from him for? And then we have to account for all of our hours and weeks of processing and curing and smoking and slicing and wrapping and packaging and labeling and organizing and
communicating,
invoicing and communicating with people. I mean, just the communication piece alone, that's like many days of work. Yeah. And that's what that price comes from. It's valuing all of that input. And the thing about that is an assertion of real value. That is concrete. That's real. That is the beginning of a real economy. Anything less than that is by necessity deceptive. It has in it exploitation built in. Someone along the lines being exploited. The farmer's not getting what he needs. So he's going to end up only being able to do this for 2 years. And he's going to burn out or get into another breed or another livestock. Or this assumes that the processors are going to continue to work 16-hour days and 70-hour weeks at a volume they can just barely handle without giving the attention that maybe even they would like to give to each individual animal and increase, their focus that way. So it's anything less than a real a cost that is based on the concrete input and value that went into the ham or the share.
And everyone can be proud of it then,
built-in exploitation.
The farmer has really enjoyed this process with us.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 2 years that he gave to these
raising
pigs.
them.
Right. But he can be really proud of every single delivery that he's making. And we're proud of the product that we've been able to do with them, which, as you said, is really just leaving it alone. Like, we're just allowing the pork to express itself. Yeah. Right. And then the consumer too. I've really been blown away at the reactions of the consumers. Yeah. They're what I hoped they would be, but I never. Yeah. Just when a customer is extremely happy to pay that large sum of money, and then be satisfied, not just satisfied, but excited and inspired. People have said. To have it in their kitchens, it feels good. Then you know the economy is working. Right.
I think we're all really afraid of offending or turning away or scaring the customer if we dare to charge what something is worth.
Well, we've all been burned a little bit.
We've been burned a little bit.
Like the farmer, I was just gonna say, he took one of these halves, not one that we had processed, but he got it slaughtered USDA. He took it to a restaurant up here in Seattle, and because the poundage was off.
Right, it was more than he estimated.
Right. Yeah. I think he had estimated it was going to be about 120 pounds, and it ended up these were large. Yeah. They ended up being like 150 pounds.
So that's significant.
It is. Yeah. And the restaurant said, "I don't want any more."
Nothing. None of it.
None of it. And, there's ways that you can prevent things like that happening with contracts and stuff. But a lot of small farmers, that's like the last thing on their mind.
Right. So, they don't have time.
No, they just kind of want to deal with people on a human level. And anyway, that's not to blame this guy because he had his own bottom line. But hard things like that happen. Yeah. And no one's to blame except the fact that you're doing something really out of the box and small scale and custom. So things are going to fall through the cracks. And so when they don't fall through the cracks, it's a sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the tools we have to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks are contracts. And that has been a huge learning curve for our whole business.
Yeah.
We have a thing called a service agreement.
Yeah.
We have rewritten that thing 1,000 times over the past 8 years. And it's essential. It's essential to try to consider all the variables, and particularly the worst case scenario of every deal. That the pig weighs 50 more pounds than you thought it would, and the buyer says, no, I don't want it. That should be in a contract. Somehow, you need to deal with that situation in a contract so that you're not shocked or surprised. That way you can account for it.
Yeah.
And that's an essential part of keeping things relatively smooth and at least codifying the rules of a new outside of the box kind of economy.
Yeah. And just to give you there's a fairy tale ending to that story, was that Canlis, which is a great restaurant up here in Seattle. It's got a lot of tradition and history behind it. They ended up going, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because they had been delivered a half, I think, the week before. They loved it. They cherished its value. And I think they've taken several more since then. So that had a good ending to it. Yeah. But it was definitely an eye-opener for the farmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is newish territory for all of us.
Yeah. And I was going to say, too, like, you shouldn't fear charging the price that is called for, what your product is worth. You shouldn't fear offending the customer, but rather, because that assumes that the customer is kind of an a-hole, which I know is weird. Like, you don't think that, but that's kind of it. And unfortunately, there is a habit, maybe, to generalize a little bit, of customers to have this notion that they are always right. Gee, I don't know where they would have got that. Yeah. The consumer. But that's not always the case. It's actually an assertion of respect to charge what your product is worth. Respect towards the consumer. Yeah. Because the assumption is that they will understand the increased value and therefore consciously, willfully choose to support you. Yeah. And that's where I think the key that enables us to sell these shares for the price that we do is that we assume that the customer wants to know. And we put out a ton of information and education about it. And so that, I feel like that is just one of the irrevocable burdens or benefits, of being a producer or a processor or a seller of these wonderful lardy pigs, is that you get to / have to educate your consumers. And we have done that, and that is incredibly gratifying because you're actually changing the way they cook things, the way they perceive value, the way they think of food. And that's like the basis of the culture of their daily life. And so it becomes this incredibly intimate, it becomes an intimate relationship that is reciprocal, and the benefits of which you can't quite limit. It's a relationship, as complex and wonderful as one can be. And it's based on this mutual respect that if I provide you the information, you are intelligent enough to make a judgment as to whether or not it is good for you or not. At least that way they're making their decision based upon knowledge, not what's the word? Ambiguous labeling. Yeah. They're not saying, oh, it's a heritage breed, therefore I want it. Not knowing what heritage breed means. Yeah. They need to have that full, informed
And as you're talking there, it's the whole heritage breed thing that we've been talking about for so long is then rendered less of a headache to deal with and more of an opportunity for something truly amazing.